Hey everybody, welcome to another virtual edition of our Crosswalk Worship Service. We've only got a couple more of these left until we are on campus and hopefully for a long time going forward. There's more information that's going to come on that. We're not exactly sure which route we're going to go. It depends on a couple of things. If we are able to be in the orange tier, which we're headed toward in Napa County, that's good news because it just opens up more flexibility in terms of what we could do inside. Our dream would be on Easter Sunday to have service outside on our courtyard, probably later in the morning, and just one service. So everybody can be together and space really isn't a problem because our courtyard is large. But if the weather is lousy, then we're going to get creative and figure out how to do it so that the people that we know want to come get to come and can do it safely inside. And if we're in the red tier, what that's probably going to mean is just multiple services, like more than our normal two. So anyway, more to come on that. Just stay tuned. We'll update the website as soon as we know what's going on, and we'll keep you informed. So, and we'll certainly have more information by next week. That'd probably be pretty important for a week before Easter for you to know what is happening on Easter. So anyway, stay tuned for that. We've got a good one for you today. We continue this spring cleaning series, and to get us heading in the right direction today, my question for you is, which I've been doing each week now for a bit, why are you here? What brings you to the table today? And what brings you into the service today? It's okay if this is just your rhythm. That's wonderful, actually. It's a good rhythm to have. But I also think that when we are intentional about what we're hoping for, what we're looking for, we're more apt to find it. And sometimes just asking the question why helps us get more out of the experience. So I want you to settle down with the song that's coming and zone in, center down, wondering about what are your hopes for today. Even if it's just to have an hour, together, that's good. Related to the theme that we're looking at, which this spring cleaning series has to do with loss and grief and preparing for what is to come. I'm reminded of this passage. It's in the Psalms, Psalm 137, the first 4 verses. And the context of this is Israel has basically been annihilated. Jerusalem has been sacked. Its key leaders and laborers have been taken away to Babylon. So they're in exile, and they're going to be there for a couple of generations. And while they're there, someone penned this poem, which we know as Psalm 137. This is just the first 4 verses. It says, beside the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept as we thought of Jerusalem. We put away our harps, hanging them on the branches of poplar trees. For our captors demanded a song from us. Our tormentors insisted on a joyful hymn. Sing us one of those songs of Jerusalem. But how can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a pagan land? It's been a hell of a year. It's been a hell of a year, and some of us feel like we are in exile, and in a lot of ways we are. My hope is with this series to help give us some tools, some handles, and ways to move forward out of this hell of a year so that we can start to look forward and move forward toward a new day. So settle down, settle in, and enjoy the song and the teaching to come, and we'll see you in just a bit.
Try to make this kind and clear, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. 'Cause I don't need boxes wrapped in string and desire and love and empty things, just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now, 'cause tonight's the night the world begins again. 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again. And it's someplace simple where we could live, and something only you can give, and that's faith and trust and peace while we're alive. And the one poor child that saved this world, and there's 10 million more who probably could, if we all just stopped and said a prayer for them. So take these words and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now, 'cause tonight's the night the world begins again. 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again. I wish everyone was loved tonight and somehow stop this endless fight. Just a chance that maybe we'll find better days. So take these words and sing out loud, 'cause everyone is forgiven now, 'cause tonight's the night the world begins again. 'Cause tonight's the night the world begins again.
So last week I shared a story with you about Sarai and Hagar. And it was an ugly story. It's not a pretty story. This is not a good children's bedtime story. It's a lousy story, really. You remember Sarai couldn't get pregnant. She struggled with infertility. And her maidservant, who could have been a young teenager for all we know, probably was fertile. And Sarai gave her up to her husband Abraham in the hopes that she'd be able to bear some children. And lo and behold, we don't know how long it took, but Hagar became pregnant. And that set off some strife between Sarai and Hagar for lots of good reasons. It got so bad, Hagar wanted to leave while she was still pregnant. Wanted to die, just wanted to be away because it was so bad. And God comforted her in that moment, and she went back and named the child Ishmael, which means God hears. She gave God a new name. You are the God who sees me, which is just so powerful. Just a reminder, Hagar is Egyptian, which means God is going to love people no matter where they're from and no matter what they look like. That's a wonderful truth we need to keep telling ourselves. Well, things didn't get a lot better between Sarah, she got her name changed to Sarah eventually, and Hagar. In fact, many years went by, at least 13 or so, before Sarah did get pregnant. And she gave birth to her son, named him Isaac. Isaac means laughter, because an old lady having a kid at that old age is laughable. It's comical. So that's why they named Isaac Laughter. Kind of funny. Well, we don't know how old or what happened exactly, but at some point, Sarah was upset at what she saw, a dynamic in Hagar and her son Ishmael. And things went from bad to worse. This stuff had probably been going on. It was probably never great. But this is the story that we find today, and it's another ugly story. And I'm sharing you another ugly story because we're kind of in an ugly story. And there's some hope for us there if we'll hold on to it. So one day Sarah saw the son that Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abram poking fun at her son Isaac. She told Abraham, "Get rid of this slave woman and her son." So it's no longer your other wife. It's get rid of this slave woman and her son. No child of this slave is going to share inheritance with my son Isaac. The matter gave great pain to Abraham. After all, Ishmael was his son. And he was a teenager. He could have been 13, 15, 16, 17 years old. We don't know. But God spoke to Abraham. Don't feel badly about the boy and your maid. Do whatever Sarah tells you. Your descendants will come through Isaac. Regarding your maid's son, be assured that I'll also develop a great nation from him. He's your son too. Now, just a side note to remember. At the Bible and this genre of one of the books of the Bible, this is sort of historical fiction, if you will. This is history remembered, and it's history with an agenda. And so it says a lot about the worldview of the people who are writing it. More at times than I think God's heart. Because I don't think God is cool with this at all. At all. But this is the way that the people of Israel framed it. Because they were telling their story as a nation. And this is how they were going to add this whole thing up. So Abram got up early the next morning, got some food together and a canteen of water for Hagar, put them on her back, and sent her away with the child. She wandered off into the desert of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she left the child under a shrub and went off 50 yards or so. She said, "I can't watch my son die." As she sat, she broke into sobs. This story isn't getting any better. Nice going, Abraham. A way to make sure she's really well taken care of as you send her away. A way to be a real man about that. Meanwhile, God heard the boy crying. Because his name is Ishmael. The angel of God called from heaven to Hagar. "What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy and knows the fix he's in. Up now, go get the boy, hold him tight. I'm going to make of him a great nation." Just then God opened her eyes. She looked. She saw a well of water. She went to it and filled her canteen and gave the boy a long, cool drink. God was on the boy's side as he grew up. He lived out in the desert and became a skilled archer. He lived in the Paran wilderness, and his mother got him a wife from Egypt. Well, where else would she get it? She's Egyptian. She knew her people and wanted the same for her boy. Well, remember, this is a story about the development of Israel. It is not just a story for children at bedtime. What a horrific story that would be for bedtime. But it's meant to tell the people of Israel where they came from and how things shaped and why the world was the way they were, why there were some people groups that there were terrible problems with. This is one of those people groups that became very problematic. He's Egyptian, right? Or at least half Egyptian. Egyptians were a serious problem in the next book of the Bible, Exodus, as you may recall. So you've got some issues here, and this is helping explain things. Just it gives them their origin story. And so that's very important, and we need to remember that is the first context and the first purpose of Genesis that we need to remember. But we also need to enjoy the story for what it is and what it was as well, which is a story that would be told and retold and thunk and rethunk for many, many years. Talked about, wondering about. As we look at this story, we're reminded that this was not a shining moment for Abraham and Sarah. This reflects terribly on them. Now, I know times have changed. I know we're talking about an Iron Age people, and that's just maybe the way that they were, the way they thought. But it's ugly. It's ugly. I don't see God reflected in the character of Sarah or Abraham. I think Abraham was cowardly. I think Sarah was upset, but immature, perhaps. I mean, who knows what's all going on here, and who knows what Hagar was acting like, and who knows what was going on with Ishmael. But man, this is just an ugly story. It's ugly, ugly, and ugly. But it also carries some lessons. And one of those ugly lessons that we get out of this is, and I've said this many times, that if you don't deal with your pain will deal with you. If you don't deal with your hurt will deal with you. I have seen this so many times in my life. I have lived this story so many times in my life. When I'm reluctant to deal with the pain in my life, whatever that might be, great or small, when I am in denial, when I don't want to deal with it, it always, always, and always deals with me. Now, sometimes it just deals with me in a physical way where I'm going to have to take a couple Rolaids before I go to bed. And that reminds me, okay, I'm stressed about whatever, who knows what it might be. I'm going to deal with it. But sometimes it's bigger stuff. Things about my own character I don't want to see or deal with. Things that I'm defensive about. Things that I have pride over that I don't want to pursue because they're painful. And they may have to do, and these kinds of things are a form of loss because it's a loss of innocence. It's a loss of a way of seeing myself that is challenged now. I may want to see myself in a better light than I should, because I want to protect myself, and we all do this to different degrees. And sometimes when I don't deal with that pain, it shows up in ways that I'm not happy about or proud about it sometimes in my life. And some of those episodes have been pretty ugly, and I wish I could take them back. And I wish I could unhurt the people that I've hurt. This is the human story, but we can learn from it. There's this old adage, I think I heard it first from some folks from the 12-step community, where they just simply shared this quote: hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. And I'm wondering what kind of hurts you're dealing with right now. What kind of pain, what kind of loss, what kind of grief. That's why I'm doing this series, is to help us identify what we've been dealing with so we can deal with it before it deals with us. So today we turn again to my friend Jim Warnock, who is a retired chaplain from Queen of the Valley Hospital, who's helped people, hundreds and hundreds of people, deal with their grief. And today he gives us some how-tos about what to do with the grief that we're dealing with. So he goes a little longer. I wanted to feature him a little bit more today, so just a little bit longer from Jim today, and I'll be back with you in just a few. So we'll see you in a second.
I think first is allowing ourselves to feel it, and not to put a cork in it. We need to understand that and accept somehow that the pain that we're feeling and the sadness is just natural. That's how God made us, and it's no weakness, It's when I'm sad and I just break down crying, sometimes for like no reason, just but that it's okay, that's how God made us. God made us to love and to be in relationship, and when that gets broken, it's like when there's a cut, you bleed. There's no mystery to that, and when I experience loss, I grieve, and that's how God made us, and so to allow ourselves to feel the feelings we're having, and then I think to find someone or someones to be able to express that to, whether it be my pastor, a professional therapist, a friend who's gone through boss, my brother, or to find a safe place where we can express and process, those feelings. Because, grief is like somebody, I remember using it, the image that it's like putting money in a bank. Okay, it doesn't go away. It compounds interest. You know, and if we don't express our grief, and then there's going to be a stock split someday. There's going to be a big withdrawal that's going to have something's going to happen. So it's important to find somebody that I can not just theorize about. I feel like right now I'm doing a little theorizing about grief. But someone whom I can express my grief to. And I'm a fan of therapy. Professional therapists. I don't fix my own cars and my own computers, and I don't fix my own broken emotions. And so a therapist is very helpful. This friend of mine that used to do this grief group with me said it's really important that you get out of bed and every day, and that you get dressed. Don't hang around in your bathrobe all day. Put on your makeup, do your hair. You don't have to, whatever. But it's important to kind of do stuff that is normal, even though life's not normal. I don't know, but she said, and people will tell you to, like, oh, you go to the show, or something like that. But the principle is that we need to kind of keep stepping forward. And there are going to be those days when we need to just say, I'm not getting out of bed today. I'm not. And that's okay, but allow ourselves that. Don't get stuck in the mud. To draw on our faith, we may be really angry with God that this happened, but you know what? God can handle it. Okay? Any relationship that is worth a darn, you can blow off at each other. And if I'm ticked off at God that, my brother died and I didn't get to be there with him, and that happens, I can let God have it, and God's not going to punish me, because again, that's how God made us. God made me to have emotions, and so for me to deny that, like, like denying how God made me, so we can blow off at God, and we can go to, ask God for comfort, and the Holy Spirit we call the comforter, and that's for a reason, and trust in our faith, and trust that Don is in good care. God, Don is, and I don't have to have all the details about what heaven looks like. I don't. Oh, that ain't my business. Oh, that's really God's. We've got these wonderful kind of glimpses in Scripture about what it's like. Anyway, so to allow comfort to come through our faith, and allow ourselves to connect with our faith community, whether that's a congregation or group of friends or my pastor. And what happens sometimes when people experience the loss and they're grieving is they sometimes kind of stop going to church. It's hard to, because I know when I go there, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to start bawling, and I don't want to do that, and nobody wants to be around me, and so people kind of tend to drift away from their fellowship, and their primary, support and faith support, and so that's one of the reasons why we have to kind of reach out to each other. not let people kind of fall off the edges like that. And I think another thing is is to mark those special events, and not just kind of avoid them. It's like uh, Christmas comes and he's not going to be there. So I'm going to run away to whatever. No, but or we're all just going to kind of gather together and we're not going to talk about it. So I think we need to know that there are those special days and markings, and know that they're going to be hard, and they're actually sometimes harder building up to those days than they are on the actual day themselves. And so we can say, well, Father's Day is coming up. What are we going to do together about that? And plan something, and do something to mark the passing and to honor that person. So doing something to not, and it's not just like, there are the Hallmark holidays, Valentine's Day is coming up, and and Thanksgiving and all those things. But it's also his birthday, and nobody knows. Today is this the first or the second of March? This is the first. Tomorrow is my brother Don's birthday. Okay, I just thought about that earlier today. And he's been gone for like 15 years now. But so and our anniversary, and the anniversary of her death, there are like those dates that I know that nobody else around me knows. So how can I get ready for and to mark those days somehow, and then to move on to the next day.
Yeah.
That's important. When we lose someone, it's like we just go down into the valley of the shadow, and it's just, and it would be nice if it just kind of, we did that for a while and we're sad and then got back up and we're on with life, and that would be, that's not as wonderful as the stair step kind of thing, but understandable, but it's a really kind of a rocky, bumpy thing, when we have good days and bad days, and it's just kind of getting worse and worse, and then we find ourselves doing a little bit better, and then I laughed at a joke. How can I laugh at a joke? I had a good day, and then we feel guilty, for having a good day, and then kind of go down and we kind of beat up on ourselves about that. But that's all part of the healing process. I guess you think about it like with a physical injury, we've all kind of sprained an ankle or broke something, or whatever, and it's painful, and and then you get kind of like feeling better, and then you step wrong, and just healing doesn't happen real smoothly like that. But if I find myself having a good day, I guess that's kind of a little glimmer of light that maybe I'm starting to heal. And again, it's not only okay that I feel horrible, it's okay that I feel well. Continue to kind of slowly get better, and then Mother's Day comes, and we go down again, but I think it's just important for us to allow ourselves, the kind of rockiness of the process, and that the overall trajectory at some point is getting better, and it's not getting back to normal. It's never going to be normal again, but it's getting better.
You know, with every passing year, there is no shortage of strife in the world, of one people group hating another people group, of one nation at war with another nation. I think this is going to continue. I think this is human nature, and I think it needs people of faith, people who decide to march in a different direction to the beat of a different drummer, to help minimize that. But I think it's always going to be something we manage and struggle with. I think we just got to get used to that. And in our own country, we've had to deal with this. We've had to deal with unresolved pain, suffering, loss, grief. I think about the racial strife that does exist in our United States. And I get frustrated and impatient because I know that if we would finally ever really be honest about our heritage, what we did, what we've done, what we still do, things would be different. I think about how we are 100 and not quite 60 years from emancipation of slavery in America, and still paying an incredibly high price that could have been cut in so much if we would have dealt with this stuff so much earlier. But we don't like to. We don't like what it says about us. It catches up with us, and it carries a high price. The same was true for Israel. Many, many, many generations after the story of Hagar and Sarah came to a conclusion where Ishmael was sent away and God did God's thing with Ishmael. Israel's mistakes, Israel's not acknowledging their mistakes, not dealing with the ways they had gone astray, caught up with them too. And it caught up by them being trounced by a foreign oppressor. Nebuchadnezzar, to be specific, from Babylon came in and wiped them out. Jerusalem was essentially sacked. That's their capital city. And when that happened, Nebuchadnezzar took from Jerusalem Israel's key leaders, their sitting king at that time, all of their most learned people, all of their skilled laborers, pretty much anybody who could possibly pose a threat and rebuild the city, were literally taken away into exile. There was just a remnant left in Jerusalem, not enough to cause any problems whatsoever. That's just how they did things. While the people were in Babylon, remember that's where that psalm came from, the beginning of the service that I shared with you, they were in misery. And they were looking around and they're like, what are we going to do? How long are we going to be here? What should we do? How are we supposed to proceed? And the prophet Jeremiah, he's called the weeping prophet. Israel gave him a lot to weep about. He writes a letter to the key people and all of Israel who were in exile in Babylon. And he says a word of hope to them. He tells them, you're going to be there a while. You're going to be there like 70 years or more. So live your life. Do what you got to do. Have families. Grow gardens. Build homes. Because this isn't going to end soon. Your normal that you want back in Jerusalem, the way it was, that's not going to happen for most of you. It's going to be a new thing now. And so you need to start on with that. But then he gave them a word of hope, as if from the mouth of God. And it's a beautiful statement. He says, I have a word for you. And this is what God is saying to you, Israel. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Hagar thought that it was all over. She thought she was going to die of thirst, literally, and her son in the desert. But that wasn't the end of the story. God heard her again, heard Ishmael's crying, weeping, a teenager crying out, and God heard and responded and carried them forward. Now, sometimes we don't always get the wish that we want. Sometimes it doesn't always go forward the way that we thought it would, but God is still with us. Some of you are grieving, struggling, working forward, and I just want you to know you're not alone, that God is with you. sometimes in ways that you don't even know and won't know for a long time. But you're not alone. And this God who is love, who is with you, is all about, at all times, seeing you through, seeing you forward toward health and well-being. That is the character and nature of God, and that will not stop, ever. The Spirit of God will constantly be at work toward that end. So have hope. Lift up your heads. Know that you're not alone. Deal with your grief in intentional ways so that it doesn't deal with you so much. And together we will walk forward to a new day. Thanks for tuning in. Let's finish our time together in a prayer of solidarity to say we're still with this God who has always been with us. Let's say it together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.